The first thing is that many of the problems that are set to plague peer review actually result from privileges that scientists are granting journals upon submission, which I think are not necessary. I think we have developed a way to have a win-win solution where both the authors and the publishers can let go of these privileges and win in the process. The second thing is that some peer reviews are excellent and some are, if you're a scientist, you can probably think of other words to put there, but I'm going to go with not. But let's go with this one first. Have you ever paused to consider what are the things that you're giving when you're hitting that submit button after the arduous process of jumping through the hoops of the submission form? Well, you give the exclusive right for the journal to define the schedule of the peer review process. But what if you are going on your field site in the deep jungle of Congo 8 weeks from now, and you don't know when the journal is going to send you that email saying that here are the changes you have to make and respond in 6 days or else? Because that's what happens. You're not in control and they're not going to, with the exclusion of the few of the top journals, they're not going to do it fast. They're going to take the exclusive right to appoint reviewers. So there isn't a possibility for somebody who is really qualified in that field to jump from the sidelines and say, hold on a moment, those methods are all wrong. Imagine if Rosa Redfield had that possibility on the arsenic light paper before it went public. Or if somebody more qualified or less enthusiastic would have commented the stem cell paper that Nature published recently, which should have been picked up in peer review. It's only decided by 2 persons. Sample size of 2 is enough to decide the fate of your science, while a little bit larger sample size is required from you to actually prove your point in science. Then there's the exclusive right to use those reviews. There are some encouraging developments recently, such as eLife, together with BMC and PLOS and EMBO, deciding to share peer reviews with each other. But by and large, the peer reviews are used by that one journal. Often your paper is rejected and those peer reviews are discarded. You submit to another paper, the whole process starts all over again. Also, the lack of having these peer reviews somehow shared means that we cannot really have a functioning academic recognition system because all of them are siloed inside those journals. And then they have the exclusive right to sit on your manuscript as long as it takes up for them to make up their mind. And you know that usually it's a long, long, long time. That's a lot of costly privileges. And they're not only costly to you as a scientist in terms of time, they're also costly for the publishers who have to put in not only the time but also the money to fund this inefficient process. So we also have a submission system, and I do encourage you to go and look at the walkthrough video because I really think it's one of the most beautiful submission systems there are. It's with the exception of maybe Peerage, it's simple and intuitive and fun to use. What do you get with that submit button? Well, first of all, you define the schedule. So we have a 4-stage peer review process with 4 deadlines, and the author decides how long is each stage going to take. Those deadlines are enforced by a cold, heartless robot that simply kicks you out of the process if you don't meet the deadline, including the author's own deadline for sending the revision. You, the editors, and the peers in the system can recommend reviewers within our pool of users, and they can join through open engagement if they find the work interesting, if they find that they have the time, and if they think they have the expertise. And since no concept is really ready without a hashtag, I want OE to be as widely recognized as OA. Open engagement is a key to many things. But any member journal in our service can use those reviews simultaneously. So we get rid of the sequential slide down the journal prestige ladder, one painful rejection at a time. Authors can get publishing offers from the journals, often many journals. And nobody sits on your manuscript. And it's all free. Well, that's not entirely true because nothing's really free, but Peerage of Science is free for scientists. The ones who are paying for it are the publishers. We have 2 different service models. The first is the select, meaning that these journals have the concurrent access into the system and can view any peer review process that's going on and make publishing offers. And then we have that connect, which is sort of a stepping stone that allows journals to keep some of their privileges, but then they also don't get the ability to go into the system and see what's going on. 2+ journals are there, and then the entire Springer collection of about 3,000 journals. Authors can also export the peer reviews anywhere they want. Then it's of course up to the editor if they want to use those reviews, but we make it possible and we make it free. So that's the first thing. Then the thing with review quality. In recent months, there's been an increasing amount of talk about reviewer recognition, which is good. However, for example, Scholarly Kitchen was highlighting a letter by 40 Australian researchers, journal editors, who said that maybe universities should also be setting professional service targets in terms of number of peer reviews you do. And, well, of course, true to form, it didn't take long for another post to appear in Scholarly Kitchen just yesterday, where they concluded that, well, it's not really a problem, and even if it is, we really shouldn't do anything about it. I obviously disagree, but I'm not going to dwell on that because I could be preaching to a choir here. Elsevier has their own reviewer recognition platform, and that too is built on the idea that statue is awarded based on the number of reviews you do. So simply tallying the numbers. ORCID is having a standard for citing peer review activities, and this is a good step. It's going to allow people to have a consistent, standardized way of citing peer reviews. But even this proposal is cut in terms of having lists of your outputs. Peer reviews are not equally valuable. Some of them are brilliant pieces of science on their own right, some of them are useful and adequate, and some are downright harmful for science. Unjustified remarks, or 3 words, this work should not, or 4 words, this work should not be published. That's 5 actually. I've just got a PhD, I can count. What we need to do is a way to tell between the good and the bad and the ugly, and act accordingly. We cannot have an academic recognition system that just tallies the numbers, that doesn't take into account that some pieces of academic work are more valuable than others, and recognition should be awarded accordingly. So what we're doing is that the author submits the original manuscript in Peerage Science. It's made available for anyone inside the service, so it's not open peer review really, because it's not open for anybody to come in from the street. You have to be a validated scientist inside our system. Peers get alert emails according to their fields of interest or expertise. Editors in our system also see everything for the incoming manuscripts. And if the peers find it interesting, they can openly engage and send in reviews anonymously, as long as they do it before the deadline the author defined. But after this, the reviewers are asked to evaluate each other. How justified was the criticism? Is the enthusiasm for the implications warranted or not? And more people can come in among the pool of users and say that, hey, that's not right. You cannot criticize that piece of method because it is correct, or the other way around. And they score each other, and the authors and the participating editors get to see all that. So now the author can revise the manuscript, knowing which of the reviewer remarks were thought to be valid by the community. And again, the revised manuscript is seen by the reviewers and the editors as they come in. So, previously, all this reviewing of the reviews and the scores were pretty much internal inside the system, impacting the evaluation of the final revision, because we thought that who wants another profile that you need to update? Well, what do I know? It turns out that many people want to have yet another profile as long as it updates itself. So we're now launching on the 1st of July mypeeragescience.org, which lets the users in our service to have a public version of their profile shown to anyone in the world. Jan Engler is the winner of Reviewer Prize last year, So his profile shows the things that he wants to say about himself, but then the scores inside our system. This performance, which tells how well does Jan do in his own peer reviewing work. This popularity that tells how often is Jan recommended to do a peer review. That's our version of a peer review request, but we just talk about recommendations instead. The other number there, 14.8, is the catalyst score of those people who have recommended Jan. And the catalyst score grows when you recommend somebody who then does a peer review, and the score that they get impacts your catalyst score. So a high catalyst score means that you are good in finding people who are good peer reviewers and getting them to do peer reviews. Here's another one. I just want to show that we're not all just from Europe. Suzanne is from Canada. Holger is from Germany. Melanie has decided to set her scores private so that users can do that too. If you don't want to share your scores, that's fine. I think Melanie is just being shy. She's one of our best reviewers, so there's no reason for her to hide those, but you have that privilege. Simon Drobniak has also decided to share some of the comments about his peer reviewing work. So whenever Simon's peer reviews have been evaluated, he also gets, in addition to the score, which here is 3.5 out of 5, he also gets written feedback about his peer reviewing. And if it's really positive, you might want to share that in your profile. And we're hoping to integrate this feature with the ORCID identifiers so that people can then list these reviews in their ORCID profiles, and it's going to link into a description of that peer review and the scores about that peer review. So with that, we then have also enhanced engagement options inside the actual peer review process. You can recommend reviewers. If you're an author, if you're a reviewer, if you're an editor following this, you can do that. And you can recommend a particular journal to the authors, and obviously the editor of the journal is also going to be notified about your recommendation. I don't know what we're going to do with the next 20 journals because we're running out of space, but I guess that's going to be a positive problem to do on that menu. With that, I thank you and look forward to your questions.
Are there any comments or questions? Well, while you're thinking about the next one, I can maybe pose one. I think your system is really based on this open engagement. Have you ever experienced any situation where you didn't have this engagement, where you just had a manuscript and no one wanted to give you a review?
Yeah. That happens occasionally. The authors then get a polite email saying that the process terminated because nobody engaged. Maybe you want to rethink about your abstract, how you're presenting your work, because that's how people make the decision whether to engage or not. But they are a minority of cases, maybe 10% of the articles. And obviously that, usually then there is something wrong with the article. It's not that interesting to many people. I would say though that Damien was talking a lot about open peer review, and I think much of the reason why people are eager to do, for example, these peer review evaluations in our system is that it's not open. It's a special thing. It's a privilege for you to be able to come in and evaluate your colleagues, their comments about the manuscript. And we're finding out that while other tasks are done just before the deadline, you know that when you give people 2 weeks deadline, they do the thing on day 14. But for the second stage of peer review, people on average get a deadline of 8 days, but they do it in under 3. So people are curious about what are other people saying about this manuscript that I just peer reviewed. And they are empowered by the feeling that I can go and score that person's criticisms or praise for this manuscript.
All right, we have one over there.
Hello, Bram Luiten from Admire. So much awesomeness and fresh ideas in a single presentation. I can't even describe how much I like this. But in the terms of the disciplines that you cover, or the community that you need to build for this to work, like you need these reviewers, you need these people on your platform, and you clearly already succeeded to some extent in this. Can you comment on the process of the early days of how you got to your first 20, 100 reviewers, and how you overcome some of these obstacles?
Yeah. So I'm a scientist, and the two other guys who are founders also in this company are scientists too. They're professors at our department, and I'm a postdoc. We're biologists. So how we started is, before officially launching this thing, we contacted everyone in our own social networks and started to tell about this and saying that you should join. So we had 500 people on board before we launched in the field of behavioral ecology and conservation biology. And that's basically how it has been growing, by people inviting their colleagues in their fields. The challenge for us now is that now we've pretty much exhausted the network of people who recognize our names, and now we need to convince scientists who don't know us personally that this is a good idea. I guess we just need to go to conferences and tell people about that, and tell the success stories that people are having, like getting a publishing offers 8 hours after the peer review was completed, and that sort of things. But I'm happy that we are seeing organic growth into new fields. So within the past year there has started to be manuscripts in medicine, without us actively trying to expand to medicine, and also those papers being reviewed. So there are enough people in the community to review those manuscripts.
Hi, thanks. It's John Treadway from Hawksbury Publishers. I'm very interested. I've known of you for some time, but not known so much detail, so thanks very much for talking. I wondered, could you, I see from the list of publishers, some are open access, some are not. Is there any way for authors to signal that they are able to pay an APC, I just wonder if there's any distinction in the interaction between a publisher and an author, if it's an open access publisher or otherwise?
Yeah, we want to be very agnostic about publishing models. We don't really care about the contract that the author makes with the journal, because we are working very much in the space before the publishing decision, in the peer review stage. So we welcome open access journals, subscription-based journals, give me your left kidney journals, all kinds of journals are welcome, as long as the publishing offer to the authors contains all the terms, and the author can make an informed decision: am I going to accept this offer or not? That's really how we operate.
Basically, follow up to the first question. What is the current scale? How many reviews have been performed during last year? How many reviewers do you have? Basically the same numbers that we've seen from PLOS now from your end.
Well, we are still very small. I can tell you that straight away. But I can get you the numbers of today. So that's our cumulative score. So we get about 70 submissions a year, so it's still very small. Each one of those papers gets on average 2.5, 2.4 peer reviews, and then those peer reviews get peer reviewed by the other people, and that's numbers that we have so far, about a little bit over 1,000 peer reviews, and soon 2,000 scientists have signed into the service. In regards to the number of peers, I want to really emphasize that we are very careful to validate each and every user. So we're very different from academia.edu or ResearchGate, where anyone can create a profile. So anyone can ask for a profile in Peerage Science, but before we give you the right to access the things inside the service. We check that your email address corresponds to a real person, that you actually have published a paper in a peer-reviewed journal where you are the first or corresponding authors, and that you don't have a user account already, because duplicate accounts cannot be allowed to be in the system. And also, we do this so that we can have the affiliation data of people, because we limit the ability of people to peer review manuscripts, so that you cannot peer review, you can't even see manuscripts in the service that are authored by somebody at your own institution, or authored by somebody with whom you have published within the past 3 years. So in order to get that data, we need to be careful about user validation and actually have that identity carefully vetted.
Yeah, for me, that's really, it's small, but it's an example, like Damien said in his first slide, it's that collaboration in the philosophical transactions. I don't think they started on a scale like Plus in the 18th century. So are there any more questions or comments? Yes, please.
Like Damien said, it's about uptake, and I think we've been very successful in getting the journals on board, and now the challenge is really getting the word out to all the millions of scientists in the world. It's a bigger challenge.
Hi, I'm Astrid van Wezenbeek from the National Library of the Netherlands. What if I'm a small, ambitious, unknown open access publisher, not in the Thomson? Can I get connected?
Yeah. Well, every week I get requests from very questionable journals. Can we sign up to your service? And often I say no, because many of them are these so-called predatory journals. But we do give a chance for anyone who doesn't yet have who's not included in the Thomson Reuters ISI index. We do vet then the journals, looking into how long have you operated. If you started 3 months ago, sorry, we can't take you in right now. We're going to take you after 2 years. Or if your papers look to be legitimate and the authors are legitimate, then we can bring in small open access journals. And we have pens of publishers, for example. I think 1 or 2 out of the 5 journals that they've listed is ISI index, and the others are young starting journals.
All right. I think there are no more questions or comments, so I would like to thank Janne-Tuomas once again. Thank you.